Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Saba Show, and today we are doing the match review for Carlton and Port Adelaide. And the Blues are 4-1, but it is probably one of the most unconvincing 4-1 starts you will ever see. We look at today's game, and where do I start? This team was up by 49 points at the half and nearly managed to give Port Adelaide their biggest comeback in their history. And of all teams to do it, it would be Carlton, wouldn't it? We look at some key performers today. Sammy Walsh had 23 first half possessions, 16 in the first quarter, ended with 38. Adam Chera had 30 plus again, or not again, first time in a while actually. Hewitt with 30 plus again. But I think the interesting thing to extract from all these players is that these players had a lot more handballs than kicks, and we were very handball heavy in this game. I think it was exactly a 50-50 split. So 202 kicks and 202 handballs in comparison to Port Adelaide, who had about 240 kicks and 117 handballs. You're really getting an idea of the type of games that were being played on either side of the ball. The Blues obviously infamously love to complicate themselves and overuse the footy, and that's exactly where this handball bullshit comes into perspective. I think Walsh had 25 plus handballs, Hewitt had about 23, Chera had about 22. These guys, at least Chera and Walsh, need to be kicking the football more than they get the handball. So yeah, even Matty Kennedy had only the 20 touches, so another quiet game by his standards, or best standards. But 14 handballs out of those 20 possessions. So once again, it wasn't great, to be honest, in that department. But we look at some other players. Pitnet, his presence was felt extremely in the first half, especially where our dominance was really felt. His hitouts to advantage were just clinical. Him following up on doing the little things, getting involved in those second efforts. That's exactly what you need from any player, let alone your ruckman that's standing about 205 centimeters tall. So that's a really positive thing. I think in past weeks, his presence was undervalued, and I think we now understand how important he is to our team's success, especially when Cripps is out. Speaking of Cripps being out, we talk about who came in as replacements. Nunes, God help me, he is an absolute pain in the ass to watch, but I will give him credit because he was a part of the chain that got us that final goal in the last quarter. It was actually his initiative to take off from, where he took the mark and, go against the trend of what we had been doing earlier in that chain. We had been doing this little kick mark, stop-start type thing. Nunes just took the mark and took off and got the footy to Charlie Kono. So I'll give him credit there. Matty Cottrell, probably his best game in Blues colours, amazingly. He took some very vital marks in the final 5 minutes, which I never really expected. Obviously, he had that big moment against Sydney a couple of years ago, but since then, I don't think we've seen really anything good from Matty Cottrell or, stand out. And I think today's performance really was one of those kinds of performances. The Smalls got involved once again. They've been quiet for a few weeks or for quite some time, and they woke up in this game. Charlie Kerner with the 5 goals. In previous weeks, in that Bulldogs game especially, that's the game where he really stood up as a key performer, kicking goals when we needed them, to give us that buffer, and it was him in the second half. I think he was the one that kicked the only 2 goals. So, Charlie, even when, we were playing like garbage, he was there to ensure that we got the 4 points. That ultimately, in essence, is what you take away from this. We've played some really ordinary football, like some crap football. Today, played a half of football. In the first half, you would have said, well, obviously we deserve to win. But the second half, then you flip it and say, Port, well, they deserve to win on the back of getting back in the game. Ultimately, we had more points than them at the end, but it really could have been anyone's game to win. We look at Port Adelaide's side as well. It was always going to be difficult for Sam Hayes to perform in his first game of AFL footy, and what a stage to be on. but we needed to capitalise on that. That's really why I found the TDK exclusion really puzzling, because we could have worked him and Mark Pitnett in tandem, and that would have worked a treat, because Sam Hayes would have found it difficult, and even the second ruckman involved for Port Adelaide, whether that was Finlayson, Marshall, whoever, Powell Pepper even at times. Robbie Gray also tried to absolutely, well, stab a hole in the hearts of all Carlton fans. Once again, he had a brilliant second half, was missing for pretty much the majority of the first, besides kicking the first goal of the game. That is for the power. But you know what? Regardless, I take these wins. I mean, I just don't understand why Carlton just... it really begs the question, where is this capitulation coming from? Or where is this collapse coming from? Why are the floodgates opening? We came off a 20-minute break at halftime. We should not have run out of legs coming out into the third quarter. I would understand, it happening in the fourth quarter, but it happened right at the start. You could just sense the momentum shift when they kicked the first couple goals of the second half. You could sense it. And you wondered if there was going to be a point where we were able to stop the charge, but it just never, ever happened. And it is just so infuriating to watch as a Carlton supporter. Obviously at the ground, at home, it's just like, well, what's being said at halftime? What are these players doing at halftime? Are these players switching off at halftime? What is going on? What is going through their minds? What are the coaches saying to them? I have absolutely no clue, but I'm just like, well, it's not necessary, is it? We played such a good half of football. You go from kicking 78 points in one half to kicking less than 20. Please make it make sense. I don't understand how you can drop off that badly. And once again, I don't think it was an effort thing, but it always felt like we were second in the ball. We were allowing them to break easy tackles. They were getting lots more action, in the corridor of the ground. It just was a complete contrast to the first half, where we just had dominance. We were just on a huge high, and it just went out the window. I'm very worried, because once you play good teams, you are going to get exposed so badly if you can't string 4 quarters of football together. And it has happened again. I reckon it's happened in 3 of our 4 wins. Richmond even wasn't the best. We started pretty slow out of the gates in that one. So I don't think there's one win this season where we've played a full 4 quarters and won convincingly. But I think that's a really good sign in saying that, because we're able to fight through it, and in some elements we were very lucky. Very similar to the Bulldogs game, the Power had their chances to win it, and when they needed that goal to cut it to about 2 goals, 1 goal, they were missing some good looks. So consider ourselves lucky in that department, but I still think the resilience, I think it was 8 points the margin with 12 and a half minutes left, and if you looked at, how frequently the goals came in the third and the start of the last quarters, you would have thought that they would have run over the top. They had 12 and a half minutes to kick 2 more goals than us, and you would have backed them in to do it. But unfortunately, they didn't do it. And why is that? Possibly because our resilience. We would have let them through. We would have let the floodgates open last season, the year before. But there is obviously a culture change, and that is one of the reasons we are 4-1 at the moment. So I'm stoked that we won. Obviously, I'm going to die of a heart attack at some point, following this football club, because they just keep on doing it to you. They just keep on finding ways to bring anxiety into the game, and it's not needed. It is not needed. But it is what it is. As I said, if you're a Carlton supporter, stay hyped, but also stay level-headed, because we are far from playing our best footy. A long way away. That's going to be it from me, so I do hope you enjoyed this one. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the show. It's been great. We will see whether we are 5-1 next week. Carlton Freo coming up, so both teams are 4-1 going into round 6, and I think it's going to be a ripper game. Fremantle have similarly beaten sides that they needed to beat lower on the table. So it's going to be really intriguing to see what this contest brings when you're playing someone of the same type of quality as yourself. So we'll see how we go. But have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out.